Oh, lovely. So how has it been received by the faith community in general and by the scientific community?
I think that that both those communities are pretty diverse. I think
Mm.
among scientists, as they've actually taken the time to understand it, even atheist scientists have really come around to really think this is an important addition to the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's to their credit, because a lot of them are atheists. Some of the people who endorse the book are not Christians. Nathan Lentz is an atheist biologist who endorsed it because it was good science. And that's actually a really important point. This book makes space for the de novo creation of Adam and Eve, ancestors of us all, very recently, just as recently as 6,000 years ago. And an atheist biologist endorsed it because it was good science. I think that's something important for us in the church to recognize, that if you put forward good science, even atheist biologists have enough integrity to come forward and endorse it.
Okay.
And so that's been good. Among Christians, I think it's really unsettled the conversation in a good way. I mean, we've really had like a really ugly, stagnant stalemate, right? This fight for a long time. And I think this is showing that there's maybe some ways around that stuckness, and maybe we could have a better understanding of these matters.
Yeah, because obviously Darwinian evolution comes into this. And that kind of leads me on to my next question, because I've interviewed quite a few people on this show now, and Christians, even professional Christians, have varying views on what we would necessarily call Darwinian evolution. Some would say they agree in microevolution, but not macro. Others would say, well, absolutely micro and absolutely macro. Why are biologists, or shall we say theistic biologists, so divided on whether evolution actually occurred or not? I mean, what does the
Well, we
science
should
say?
be. I mean, every biologist I know disagrees with Darwinian evolution. We got rid of that like in the 60s. So, if that's
Okay.
what the issue is, that's not, no biologist I know affirms our Darwinian evolution.
Would we call it neo-Darwinian then, like a new version, or
Yeah, we got rid of neo-Darwinian evolution.
punctuated at equilibrium?
With Kamura's work. And I certainly agree that large parts of the church are devoted to, attacking a dead theory. But I mean,
Yeah.
why do that when evolutionary science is just in a very different place? I mean, this
Okay.
is one of the things that most confused me about the conversation, because what I heard about evolution from people in the church arguing against it was just so different than what I actually encountered from actually talking to non-polemic. I'm not talking about, like, these weren't public debates. This is just like studying evolution in a very boring way, learning about it. It's just very, very different things. And I don't know why exactly people would devote that much effort to debunking a theory that scientists abandoned a long time ago. I mean, that's something worth asking them. I mean, the fact of the matter is that most of us, that's just not how we understand it. Evolutionary science is a big part of science. It's not Darwinian evolution or neo-Darwinian, but evolutionary science is important. That's something different that we could talk about. And I do think that there is a lot of evidence, particularly for common descent,
Okay.
which is this notion that it really looks like humans share common ancestors with the great apes. That doesn't mean God wasn't involved. It doesn't mean that that God doesn't providentially guide all things. He does. It doesn't mean that God didn't create us. He created all things. This is really more about how he created us. He created us in a way where, when you look at it, it just looks like we share common descent.
Okay, so obviously in this country we don't have so much influence from the American scientific community. We have people like Richard Dawkins. Very clearly he's an atheist. Very clearly he's got an agenda to push Christianity out of the UK, and he's promoting what we would call Darwinian evolution, but obviously there's newer terms
he
for
would
it.
call it Darwinian evolution too. The thing about it to keep in mind is that most scientists, look at what Dawkins does, even atheist scientists, there's been surveys and studies on this, and they don't think that Dawkins is a good representative of the science.
Right.
So, I mean, fine, disagree with Dawkins, but don't think that he's accurately representing
That's the problem, because
where the actual evolutionary science is. Evolutionary science is not atheistic. It is not Darwinism. I mean, he actually understands Darwinism to be atheism. So what he's really promoting is atheistic evolution. And science doesn't tell us about God either way. So it doesn't really teach atheistic evolution. It just talks about what the evidence seems to show. And we know for a fact that science is not the whole story. Science never gives the whole story. And, the fact that Dawkins wants to make this crazy argument that it does give the whole story, I mean, that's on him. That's not on scientists. And Christians don't have to feel like he comes with the authority of science when he says that.
I think that's the problem in the UK is here that, he'll go on there and say we have proven kind of Darwinian evolution beyond any shadow of a doubt. We evolved from slime in the sea. Anybody who questions that is a complete moron, and that's
conflation that he's making. So the conflation is, it really does look like we evolved from slime in the sea. That doesn't mean God wasn't involved. That's not necessarily atheistic. And so he's kind of jamming together all of these ideas in one, kind of showing that if one of them is right, then they all must be right. But that's like trivially false. It's equivocation. And so, and to the extent, I mean, there's even recordings about how he kind of recognizes, evolution is totally compatible. I mean, I can show you a recording which kind of blew my mind when I watched it. He said, he kind of acknowledged and conceded, evolution is totally consistent with the idea of God. But my agenda, he says, is to get rid of, religious beliefs. So I don't want to talk about that. I just want people to feel like they're in conflict. That's not really a trustworthy sort of scientific engagement. In fact, there's very good evidence, very clearly beyond, and this isn't from a religious point of view, from even non-religious scientists, like, for example, the AAAS, will agree that that is a proven bad way to advance science. What he is advancing atheism, not science. And so, do Christians disagree with atheism? Yes. Just don't confuse that as science, and don't put that on scientists. Just call him out on that. And hey, if he keeps on saying that, put me on air with him, and I'll talk to him about it.
That'd be amazing. I think